the 80,000 that support South Carolina will get their first Gamecocks chant in of the year. Welcome back inside the Gamecocks, the show. JC, JB, and Phil. And I hope, Harry, I'm saying this right. Harry Minion, right?
Minium.
Minium.
Yes.
Minium. Phil?
It's a German name from Alsace-Lorraine. Minium. That was pretty good. Most people call me Minimum.
No, I'm not that. So I'm going to put all of this on Phil. He's the producer, and so he screwed this whole thing up from the get-go, and I apologize.
I'm a terrible
Harry.
SID. I did not put out a pronunciation guide, Harry. I apologize.
That's okay, Phil. I've been called much worse.
Right.
I'm with you on that. First and foremost, thank you so much for spending time with us here on this Thursday as we get ready to welcome Old Dominion to town on Saturday. I've done a little bit of research on you. I have to admit, didn't know much about you until a few days ago. You've been doing this a long time. You are excellent at what you do, man. Really, really neat.
Thank you. I've worked almost 40 years at the Virginian Pilot, the newspaper here in Norfolk. I actually have covered a bit of South Carolina over the years. The last time I was at Williams-Brice was 1987. And I was covering Virginia Tech at the time, and you guys absolutely crushed them. And after the game, my car wouldn't start, and I missed my flight. So,
I'm so sorry.
Flight back to, were you living in Blacksburg at the time?
No. I was in Norfolk.
In Norfolk, yeah. I was like, because you fly into Blacksburg, you got to take 2 puddle jumpers.
To
Roanoke. That's
you use a parachute. Yes.
I feel you.
Well, you know what? Well, just put that on Phil too. He probably had something to do with that back in '87. Yeah. It's anything that goes wrong, we blame it on Phil. If you haven't figured that out. My wife is from Bethany Beach, Delaware, and so we've traveled up through Norfolk a lot and gone through, which is just so dreadful to me. Driving underneath the water just drives me bonkers to even think about it. But the Chesapeake Bay Tunnel, you probably just fly through that thing and don't even think about it anymore, do you?
Yeah, I do. It's absolutely. And my girlfriend actually lives in Berlin, Germany, and she was just a little freaked out when we went in the Hampton Roads Tunnel, which is not quite as long as the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, when she visited here a few months ago. So we can't build bridges here because we have the world's largest Navy base, and if there's a war, a bridge comes down and the channel's blocked. So we have to build tunnels here, which is interesting because they're a lot more expensive than bridges.
Yeah. Well, the first time we ever did it, and we'll move on and talk football. The first time we ever drove up there was the first year that her and I were together. I'd never seen the thing. She didn't even tell me. I had no idea. And I was driving here, and we're on the bridge, and I'm looking up, and I said, "Where the hell's the rest of this thing?" And she said, "It's the tunnel. I told you there's a tunnel." I said, No. You said there's a tunnel. You didn't say the tunnel went underneath the Atlantic Ocean.
Wow. Yeah. I did not know that, Harry, as to the why on that. So I've learned something, And by the way, I followed your work for many, many years when I was doing national recruiting and stuff, and covering Virginia Tech kind of at afar. So welcome in. It's an honor to be speaking with you today.
Absolutely.
And I followed you too as well, JC. Now, one thing I wanted to mention, because I want to make sure and get this in, is that I knew Shane Beamer before anyone knew him. I covered Virginia Tech when he played there. And I was the first person to write a feature story on Shane. And what a great kid. He was a walk-on, and I think he earned a scholarship. He was their long snapper. He was 180 pounds, soaking wet. He never had a bad snap. And, here you got a guy who's his father's the coach, and his teammates loved him. There was no resentment. I interviewed him. I got to know Frank Beamer pretty well over the years. It's just a wonderful family. And let me tell you a little bit about Shane. It had been decades since I talked to Shane. And I came to Columbia for the 2021 NCAA Regional that you guys hosted, that Old Dominion was supposed to host.
Yes.
And, I'm sitting in there in the press box, and someone taps me on the shoulder, and it's Shane Beamer. And I said, "Shane, what the hell are you doing here?" He says, "I came down to see you, my friend. How are you?" And that, that's Frank, that's Shane, that's Cheryl, that's their entire family. They're just wonderful people. And I used to live in Charleston. I love South Carolina. I have a vacation in Myrtle Beach. So I wish you guys an 11-1 season this year.
That'd be
Let
wild.
me guess. The one is on Saturday.
Yes.
That'd be wild. I will say,
I think people would sign up for that. I do think they'd sign up for that.
I mean, I will say the Michigan team that lost to App State actually finished 10-3 and beat the Gators and Heisman Trophy winner Tim Tebow in a bowl game. People don't remember that; they just remember the loss to App State. So. Yeah. There's some precedent, but we hope that doesn't. Obviously, that would be our jobs get a lot harder if there's an upset this weekend.
Well, our job gets hard. I would imagine Shane's gets a little bit more difficult as well. You're right. He's a wonderful human. Shane is always so positive, and we just had this conversation yesterday, Phil, talking with Mike Morgan about how so many people have these stories. Shane never forgets anybody. He doesn't forget where he came from. He doesn't forget people who he's passed through over the years. Not saying that he passed through with you. I'm just saying he just remembers everybody. He's all about relationships, and hopefully that carries over into some wins for his football team this year. Let me ask you about your football team, Old Dominion. Probably, if people do some research in 2023, one of the more interesting records in college football, because while the Monarchs went to a bowl game and lost, but finished 6-7 on the season, 5 of the 7 losses were by 6 points or less, and every single win was by a touchdown or less, which I found just beyond fascinating. So what does that tell our audience? I'm not sure with the portal and all those things, Harry, how much carries over from 23 to 24, but what does that tell our audience about the football program, but also about the league, the Fun Belt?
Well, yeah, the Sun Belt is a good league. It's we came from Conference USA to the Sun Belt, and it's almost like excuse me, Conference USA. I love all of y'all, but it was almost like the move from SCS to FBS. The Sun Belt is a great football league. Blake Seiler, the defensive coordinator who coached Kansas State, he said there are 3 or 4 teams in the Sun Belt who would finish in the middle of the ACC, not the SEC, but the ACC.
Wow.
So yeah, this team, what it tells you is this team was a little under talented last year, and we had a quarterback who had never started a game, never played in FBS, made some mistakes, but this team just had a lot of heart and grit. I mean, they won games they shouldn't have. I believe we scored 3 times in the last minute and 14 seconds against Georgia State to clinch a bowl bid. Just an unbelievable game. So, but you're right. The transfer portal and NIL have, I know it's affected everybody, but it's especially affected the group of 5 schools. We have 56 newcomers this year, including a ton of people who are going to start. And because I work for ODU, I'm no longer an unbiased journalist. There are going to be some names I'm not going to tell you about today that I've seen at practice who I know will play well. So.
Tell us.
Hold on, let me text Shane and see if he wants to tune in. And
we're all focused on one linebacker, right? And so
I want to talk about this quarterback. I feel like this kid's a game changer. Go ahead, JC.
Yeah, I was going to ask about my coach. You read my mind, JB. You're very psycho. I mean, very psychopathic. No, telepathic. My bad. Yeah. Psychopathic. No. Quarter. Tell us about him. I know was he with the current offensive coordinator when the guy was at Fordham?
Yes.
He's known. He's coached this kid for a long, long time.
He has.
Would have had 600 something yards rushing if you don't take sacks out of it. Good arm. The system emulates Josh Heupel's at Tennessee. Looks like they both want to go fast. I see, you may not want to mention them, around him, some guys that came down from Power 4 that transferred in. A lot of sacks last year. But just break down the quarterback's game and then just tell us. I'm wanting to say Garrett Wilson, and I know that's not
Grant
right.
Wilson.
Grant Wilson. Garrett Wilson's a receiver. Yeah. At Ohio State. So Grant Wilson, tell us about Grant Wilson and what he brings to the table. What kind of problems does he present for a defense?
Well, the first thing is he's very mobile. He's not a huge guy. He's big for a group of 5, but he can escape, and he needed to escape a lot last year. One of our problems last year was, as Ricky Ronnie, the head coach, says, we had a lot of sacks, a lot of pressure on the quarterback, and that goes. It's not just an offensive line problem. It's wide receivers not getting open, running backs not blocking, that sort of thing. But Grant got sacked a lot last year. This year, we now have 23 offensive linemen on our roster. That was one of the big things in the transfer portal, and in junior colleges, they really have a much better offensive line. Ricky Ronnie was saying at his press conference on Monday that we can go 10 deep on the offensive line. Last year, we could go 6 deep. Guys just didn't come out, and if they got hurt, we were in trouble. Grant is a good passer. The offense moves very quickly. I think the crowd, obviously, the crowd is going to be a factor in this game. It always is in South Carolina. And damn, that rooster, Ricky Ronnie has been amping in music into their practices. Crowd noise into their practice. And he said we tried to get a rooster call and we couldn't because we wanted our guys to hear what that sounded like. But I think this year we're going to have speakers and helmets, and so they won't have a problem getting plays in. And so I think that will help. The thing about Grant, he's the kind of kid, if someone tackles him and he gets up first, he'll help the linebacker up who tackled him. He's just a really good kid, a good Christian kid.
Love it.
Hardworking, smart guy. So, yeah.
Yeah, 52 times he was sacked last year. That's Carolina had plenty of their own issues up front. They just like ODU focused in the offseason on rebuilding this offensive line. So both of these teams are going to try to showcase that as much as they can against one another on Saturday to see how far they've come, at least in game one. What about on the other side of the line of scrimmage? I mentioned Carolina rebuilding theirs. What's up front for ODU on the defensive side?
Denzel Lowry is a kid I'll mention. He's great. He's a great defensive tackle. They have pretty good depth on the line. They do not have anyone back in the backfield. Everyone who plays in the backfield will either have not started or be a transfer. They got a lot of kids from the transfer portal. And by the way, the same thing at wide receiver on one restarted returns. They got transfers from Iowa, Minnesota, and Missouri at wide receiver. So there are going to be a lot of new faces. I don't even know who's starting in the defensive backfield, but Blake Seiler, the defensive coordinator, says that he thinks they're going to be stronger there than they were, and they need to be. They weren't very strong there last year. Jason Henderson, their linebacker, a throwback to the 1950s and 60s. This kid, the first time I saw him, it was just before football practice started in the summer when he was a freshman. And I looked at him and I thought I was at a bodybuilding contest. The guy is just jacked up. He had his shirt off and I'm going, oh my God. Gosh, that turns me on. No, I'm just teasing, but he's an unbelievable worker. And he's coming off a knee injury. So we'll see how things go after that. But the guy's relentless. Old Dominion got him because he's an inch or two short. He wanted to go to Penn State. Penn State recruited him. Ricky Ronnie comes down here as a head coach. He's been recruiting him since he was in the 9th grade. Offered him right away, and Jason came here. He agreed to come here right away. Other schools came in late, but he said, no, I committed to Old Dominion. A lot of schools obviously have gone after him during the off season. He said, no, I'm staying here. Like I said, this kid's a throwback. He grew up in a blue-collar family in rural Pennsylvania. His parents, they struggle a little bit financially, and he's just a great kid. He's a great reflection of them. So,
all right. And
the thing about it is when he hits someone, they go down. I've never seen him miss a tackle.
I'm sure they did come after him in the offseason. There's a lot of that going on out there, isn't there? I have to ask you the question. I have to do it. I'm not asking. I'm asking for other people who are asking. Right. Are the tackle numbers inflated or not?
That's a bunch of BS.
All right. Yes. I'm with you.
I'll tell you, Eric O'Hannon, our sports information director, there's no one with more character than he is. He's very careful about getting everyone's statistics correct. I know there's been some mention online that he had more at home than he had on the road during this series. Well, in one of those games on the road, we were up against Coastal Carolina by 50 points in the third quarter. So he sat out the entire second half, So, the people who've been saying this, they haven't called us to ask for explanations. And,
unbelievable.
That's the first rule of journalism.
Right.
Of course, there's no journalism anymore, as we know, especially not on the internet. You call to try and, okay, why is this happening? And you get an answer, and they didn't do that. It's infuriated me because Eric is a really a good and moral guy, and I know it's hurt him.
Well, I'm so glad that you said that, because I never even thought that at all. I looked up the numbers because I think he's 122 shy of the national record, which was set just a couple of years ago by Carlton Marshall from Troy, who has 546 career tackles, assisted and unassisted combined. I never even thought.
And look where some of the people who are questioning this, look who they root for. And that's all I'll say.
Okay, fair enough. Well, when it started coming up, I was like, well, I actually went and did look at all the game logs, just Harry, at home and away. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't see a big enough discrepancy to even think twice about it. But I figured since you'd be on, why not just let you say it from your end, and maybe we're the first people who've ever actually asked about it instead of just making the statement that it's true. So, All right, good news. Harry Minium joining us from Norfolk, and you'll be in town, I'm assuming, probably sometime tomorrow, right?
Yes, we have a bunch of donors coming on the plane, and we're going to have dinner tomorrow night. Nice restaurant somewhere in Columbia. Columbia is a great city. When we were there for the NCAA regional, 3 years ago, it's just a great city. Love downtown. Love the restaurants there. Love the clubs.
You'll have a good time.
It's come a long way, hasn't it? It's come a long way since 1987.
You can catch a good time in Columbia. Now, that 87 game, that was actually Frank Beamer's first season. I reminded Shane of that when we had him on, because I think Shane's my age, so I think we both were like 11, 10. But that was the beginning of an era. So that was something else. And the Hokies play the Gamecocks next year in the opener. So a team you covered, they open against
in
a team
Atlanta.
You covered twice
in Atlanta
in a row. So that's
all right. So let's talk about this offense for a little bit. I think JC probably wants to ask you about the running backs. I do too. I know they've got some good ones, some transfers, but so it's been mentioned a couple of times, Harry, that this offense at ODU, I don't want to say is compared to Tennessee. That's just not fair to say that, but they try to move the football at a brisk pace. You mentioned that earlier. And of course, Tennessee tries to get down the field as quickly as they possibly can. So can you kind of provide some insight into that? Maybe there's a better comp out there for folks.
It's very similar to Tennessee. So all these, and Fordham, but all these offenses have different, they have their own wrinkles. The thing I'll say about this offense is the receivers are, they have set patterns, but they're free to break away. They have a lot of freedom in what they can do, and they do want to move fast. They want to try and wear down the defense. The problem last year is that they were out 3 and out, or one first down and out, and the defense didn't have enough time to rest. And Ricky Ronnie said one of his goals this year is to sustain a few more drives to get, if we're going to punt the ball away, let's get 3 or 4 first downs to give our defense time to rest. And by the way, I'm not going to talk about the running backs because all the running backs are new. And I know who's going to start, but I can't tell you.
No depth chart leaks here. No,
we're not on the coaching staff, right?
I do know that. But also
they monitor.
Coaching staff surely watches this show.
A couple of them do. Yeah.
I think you make a good point there, Harry. I was surprised when I started digging into ODU that they did run that tempo with the number of sacks they gave up, because the offense is designed not to give up that many sacks because you're going so fast, getting the ball out quick. And that can bog you down. And you make a great point there. That style of play, it's great. That's why because if it worked all the time, everybody would run it. I do think it's an equalizer. I do think there's a chance it gives South Carolina some trouble Saturday because Carolina's got some new starters at corner. One mistake and the ODU band coming? Is the marching band coming?
I do not know.
Well, if they are, they'll be playing the fight song because that's what it's designed to do is quick strike. But when you go 3 and out, your defense just gets drugged. I saw it happen in Tennessee against Missouri last year. I mean, when they're misfiring, that's a big problem. So with regards to Wilson, when he has time and he's not getting pressured, kind of talk about his accuracy. And then when he does get rushed a little bit, what's his ability like to improvise? Because this offense also is designed for guys to get creative downfield. And so the scramble play works. I mean, Hendon Hooker was really good at that at Tennessee. Talk about just kind of his accuracy downfield in both instances.
Last year, he had some problems with accuracy. And remember, it was his first year starting in college football. His accuracy has been better in practice this year. And his attitude is different, too. He was a young guy, first-time starter, came from an FCS program. Probably, it really doesn't help your self-esteem very much to know you're a young kid in a program. And he grew up a lot last year, and he grew up a lot in the off season. He's a captain, which he was last year, and he's watching him on the practice field. He's become much more of a leader. He's much more confident, and he's throwing with more authority. There's not a lot of hesitation. He had the game winner against Georgia State. He could have had the game winner against Georgia Southern. He's running it to the end zone with like 5 seconds left. And coach has always said, if go down at the 1. This time the coach is saying score, and he went down at the 1. So we had to kick a game-winning field goal. But, he's better than he was last season. He could be much better than he was last season. I think especially if he gets better protection. And like Ricky said, that's not just on the offensive line. It's on the wide receivers. It's on the defensive backs. It's even on Grant, going to the right place, making the right throws, making the right calls.
The voice you hear, Harry Minium, senior executive writer at odusports.com. Monarchs, Gamecocks, 4:15 SEC Network on Saturday, or Williams-Brice Stadium for all of you who will be joining us at the ball game. Couple of things, maybe a little outside of the X's and O's. So two season openers ago, 2017 final score, Virginia Tech goes down in Norfolk. And I know that wasn't on the road, but it's it's still a Power 5 at the time win, or Power 4 now. B, it's Virginia Tech, who's not far away. That probably sent some ripples, I would imagine. Are you aware of any difficulty in scheduling Power 4, Power 5 type games after a win like that? I know App State went through this. Other teams, when they beat somebody, the flags kind of go up and people are like, maybe not. Any hurdles after that victory?
Not really, because we got Virginia Tech to sign a 10-year deal.
Saw that.
Why did they go to they've lost 2 in a row in Norfolk.
They have. That 2018 game, Old Dominion not only won, that was a nationally ranked Virginia Tech team. They wore the Hokies down.
Yes,
it was the most yards Bud Foster ever gave up. It was just an amazing game. And the game 2 years ago, Virginia Tech, Brent Pry, it was his first game, and he surely did not want to open on the road at a state rival, at a school that he recruits against, and against Ricky Ronnie, who is probably his best friend in the world. They were together at Penn State, and that was a pretty magical moment. The students, unfortunately, 2,000 or 3,000 of them ran on the field after the game, and they were all jumping up and down, and that was a cool moment. So I mean, they're used to beating Power 4 teams. And it hasn't really. I mean, we're at Indiana next year. We've got Virginia Tech down the road. We've got Virginia coming here in a few years. So it hasn't really hurt us. Now the thing that may, all the changes in college football, all the the SEC when it becomes a 28-team league, that sort of thing.
That's right.
What happens to the ACC, and so all that is going to change everything.
Harry, you can pass this message to the administration. If they walk into Williams-Brice and meet South Carolina on Saturday, they won't be on the Gamecocks schedules in the future.
No, I actually think Shane. I don't think Muschamp scheduled this. I think this was scheduled when Beamer first got here. So I think because Beamer, I remember thinking he's scheduling programs he's sort of familiar with because ODU popped on the schedule, and then Towson popped on the schedule, and Towson is a Beamer's got some connection up there or something. I think. I mean,
I love this game. I think it's a great game.
A couple of things, so this is only Old Dominion's second trip to an SEC venue, second SEC game ever. First one was Vandy in 2014. I love the 2014 Vandy team because Mason took over for Franklin and those guys like Ronnie, and Brent Pride. They all went to Penn State, and they had everybody back. And I thought Derek Mason was just terrible, a terrible fit. And I told everybody they were going to go winless in the SEC. I got called out by all 12 Vanderbilt fans on earth. And and sure enough, they did.
Harry, you got to be careful being around here, man. You don't want to get lumped into all that.
They did.
Don't let him bring you down. Don't let him bring you down with him.
By the way, I love Nashville. I love Vanderbilt. It's a great university, but I tell you, there were not a lot of fans at that game.
No, the Hokies are going to bring 20,000 to the Kill Zone. I call it the Kill Zone because Jerry Kill's there now. But they're going to bring 20. I think the Hokies will travel there for the opener pretty well Saturday. But so it was a competitive game, 42-28. But Vanderbilt's not South Carolina. So this is as far as stadium and atmosphere. Can you remember another besides Virginia Tech? Because I know Lane's rocking, right?
Yes.
Besides Virginia Tech, how many times can you remember Old Dominion's played in kind of this kind of environment?
I'm honestly, this kind of environment, I mean, there are very few environments like this in college football. One of the top 5 or 6 in the country for sure. Maybe as good or better than Virginia Tech. I don't know. I haven't been there in a long time. But I'll say this, App has a pretty good environment. App State does. JMU game last year, fans of both teams in there. That game was rocking and rolling. But as far as Power Fives, no. I mean, played at Pitt, half the stadium was empty, So this will be, other than Virginia Tech, I think this will be a unique experience. This will be the most people ever to see an ODU game.
Beamer mentioned that in the press conference. Final thing for me. So 757, there's a lot of Hokies that have come out of the 757 through the years, right? It's been a Virginia Tech pipeline. Some have gone to UVA. In general, I know there's a lot of probably just ODU fans, but there's a lot of probably people that like one of the major programs and then ODU. More Virginia or Virginia Tech fans in the 757, in your opinion, i.e. when UVA comes to town here in a couple of years, will the Monarchs have them outnumbered?
The Monarchs will have UVA fans outnumbered. I think UVA will travel fairly well. But I mean, this is as far as Virginia versus Virginia Tech. I worked at the Virginia Pilot and I saw the readership numbers. Virginia Tech drove readership and UVA, quite frankly, UVA football did not. And that was why we aggressively went after Virginia Tech to get them on the schedule, because their fans, they'll be maybe 3,000 or 4,000 Tech fans at our stadium, which seats 22,000. It'll be sold out. And it's interesting when they're there because, there's every play, there's a cheer from one side or the other. So, but no, this is definitely a Virginia Tech town. I think it's, this is more of a blue collar area. There's a lot of, Virginia Tech has a lot of architects, engineers, that sort of thing. And we have a lot of fans here. My insurance agent went to Virginia Tech. He has ODU season tickets. He's an ODU sponsor, so State Farm Insurance. He's sort of torn on who he's going to root for when they come here in a couple of weeks. But he has a house in Blacksburg that they use just to go to games there. So there are a lot of our fans are Tech fans. Not that many are UVA fans.
For those that don't know, it is about a 4.5 hour drive from there to Blacksburg. And Shane actually told me one time, because they were out recruiting UVA, that you have to go through Charlottesville to drive from Norfolk to Blacksburg. or is that just one way you could go?
That's one way you could go. I like going 460, which takes you through the back roads of Virginia and through a lot of farmland. It goes straight across the state. The interstate goes up to Charlottesville and down. I always drove 460 because, you know, I just kind of liked it. And by the way, it's 5.5 hours. Yeah. On a good, yeah.
Probably actually a pretty nice drive, though, isn't it? I bet it's a pretty, okay.
Yeah.
A couple of quick ones from me, real quick. It's expected if you know Columbia. This is, we didn't have one of these. Matter of fact, I think it's probably been a couple of years since it's been where it's going to be. It was going to be 92 degrees on Saturday, right? 91, 92 when they kick off. What's the weather been like up there, and how have they prepared for that?
By the way, Columbia is the hottest place on planet Earth. It really is.
It's up there. Birmingham's pretty hot too, though. I'll say.
Yeah. I don't know. Every time I've been to Columbia, it's been sweltering. Unfortunately, the weather here has been cool for about until a few days ago, it had been cool for about a week and a half. So, the weather is going to be a factor, and Old Dominion is going to have to bring a lot of guys in and out there. They'll do a lot of subbing, and they'll have fans and everything on the sideline, the AC fans and all that, and they'll be hydrating. But that's definitely a factor because it really does get hot there.
Yes, it does. There's no doubt. And then finally, just kind of a quick word on campus up there in Norfolk. I've driven through ODU's campus very briefly, but what I discovered was it is gorgeous. It's right there almost along the Lafayette River, a little bit in from it, but right there. And for folks that maybe are going to be headed up that way or driving through at some point in time, there's 10, 15,000 people that are going to watch or listen to this show by the end of the day. So anybody that might be in the area, if you maybe like to give them a brief description of what it's like up there, maybe they'd like to stop in sometime.
I went to ODU back in the 70s. It was a commuter school, and the campus looked like a 1960s office park. It is unbelievable what has happened since. The university, we have Hampton Boulevard, which drives right through in front of our campus. We went across Hampton Boulevard, took 80 acres, and had built housing, a basketball arena that's by far the best in the Sun Belt. Seats 8,500. If Gamecocks ever want to play here, we'd love to host you guys. We have a beautiful athletic complex, a $76 million renovation of our football stadium. We opened an $84 million chemistry building. We are opening a health sciences building. Eastern Virginia Medical School became part of ODU. We have 5,000 students living on campus now, which we had about 600 when I went to school there, and another 5,000 or 10,000 living around here. It's a beautiful campus with restaurants, all the things you would expect. A student rec center that I work out at every day, and restaurants on campus, and it's just a cool place. And we're building more. There's an apartment complex that's going to go up, 8-story apartment complex with a grocery store. We have a new development up the road called it's Lambert's Point. I've forgotten the name of it, but it's an $80 million shopping area. So wow. Old Dominion is a cool place. It's a wonderful place to work and a cool place to go to school. And if you're ever coming this way, go to downtown Norfolk. We have a battleship there, the USS Wisconsin. We've got cool bars, a couple of hotels on the waterfront. You can, watch carriers come in and, watch tankers come in and all that. It's pretty cool.
And my cousin's up there all the time. He works for the U.S. Navy. I can't say what he does, but he does work for the U.S. Navy. He's in Norfolk literally every month for a week. And he really does enjoy that trip. All right, Sheets or Wawa?
Oh, Sheets.
Oh, okay. All right. See, I'm a Wawa guy. But
we don't have Sheets here, but when I'm on the road, I love Sheets. Yeah,
I figured you'd travel past plenty of like North Carolina and places like that.
Yeah,
but Wawa's right down the street from you. So
it is. There's one half a mile from my house. Yeah, I don't go to it. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh. Is there something I should know? Because I always stop at the Wawa before the tunnel.
Oh, that's right. There's one right there. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a nice Wawa. That's a very nice Wawa. Yeah.
I tried Wawa one time in New Jersey. I thought it was a little overrated.
I like Wawa. All right.
Gas is cheap there. It's cheaper than just about anywhere else.
I always get the same thing. I get the same Italian sub every time I go. So maybe I'll we'll shift gears maybe. Hey, man, look, really appreciate you being here, especially for as long as you've stuck around with us. This has been a great conversation. We wish you a safe trip to Columbia, and wish you all the best on Saturday afternoon in the ball game.
And hope you guys win your next 11 games.
Thank you, Harry.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. I very much appreciate it. You guys do a great job.